Dad perfect events. I was sitting in my kitchen, coffee getting cold, watching my son, Marcus, and his wife, Beverly, talk about my construction company like I was already dead. They didn't know I could hear them from the hallway. Dad's getting old, honey. That heart scare really shook him up. Now's the time to move on the business transfer, Marcus was saying. Beverly nodded. The Riverside project alone is worth $280,000. If we can get him to sign over the company now, we avoid all that messy probate stuff later. That was 3 weeks after Dorothy's funeral. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, because the whole thing is pretty unbelievable. I'm Gerald Hoffman, 58 years old. Been running Hoffman Construction for 28 years. Started with just me and a pickup truck. Built it into a solid business doing commercial projects around Chicago. My wife, Dorothy, she was 56 when she passed from heart disease 6 weeks ago. We'd been married 33 years. We have 2 kids. Marcus, he's 33, been working for me the last 8 years as project manager, married to Beverly, who sells real estate and always has an opinion about everything. Then there's our daughter, but she lives in California and we don't talk much. The important person here is my nephew Leonard. He's 29, lost his parents when he was 12, and Dorothy and I raised him. He's been working construction since he was 19, started as my apprentice. Kid's got a real head for the business. Dorothy's funeral was in February, cold as hell in Chicago. St. Mary's was packed. Dorothy had volunteered at the hospital for 15 years after retiring from nursing. I sat in the front pew between Marcus and Leonard. What I remember most wasn't the service. It was what happened after at the house. I was in the kitchen making coffee for people when I heard Marcus and Beverly talking in the dining room. They thought I was upstairs. The company's worth at least $1.8 million, Beverly was saying. Dad's had that heart episode. Doctor says he needs to reduce stress. This is perfect timing to suggest he step back. He's been talking about semi-retirement anyway, Marcus replied. I just need to position it right. Make it sound like I'm doing him a favor taking over operations. I stood there with the coffee pot in my hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My own son, planning to take my business while the dirt was still fresh on his mother's grave. It got worse over the next few weeks. Marcus started showing up at job sites, telling foremen he was transitioning into full management. He scheduled meetings with our biggest clients without telling me. I caught him in my office one evening, going through contract files. Dad, you startled me, he said, not even looking guilty. I was just reviewing the Patterson project timeline. Wanted to make sure we're on track. Since when do you review files without asking me? I said. Come on, Dad. You've been distracted since Mom died. Someone needs to keep things organized. That's when I started paying. Closer attention, real close attention. Marcus was stealing from me. Not just planning to take over, actively stealing. I found out he'd been meeting with our competitor, Midwest Commercial Contractors, offering to bring our client list if they hired him as a partner. He'd already contacted 3 of our biggest accounts, telling them I was having health issues and might not be able to complete their projects. The worst part? He'd opened a business checking account using my company's tax ID number, been diverting payments from 2 smaller jobs. About $35,000 so far. I only found out because our bookkeeper mentioned some invoices seemed to be paid, but weren't showing up in our main account. I was ready to confront him, maybe call the police, when I remembered something. Dorothy had left me a folder in the bedroom safe. She'd always handled our important papers, said there were things I'd need to know when the time came. I'd been putting off looking at it because, honestly, it hurt too. Much. But that night, after I found out about the stolen money, I went upstairs and opened that safe. The folder was marked, "For Gerald, open after him gone." Inside was a letter in Dorothy's handwriting, dated just 3 months before she died. My dearest Gerald, it started. If you are reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine Marcus is showing his true colors. I've been watching him for the past 2 years, and I'm sorry to say our son is not the man we hoped he'd become. I had to sit down. The letter went on to explain that Dorothy had been documenting everything. She'd noticed Marcus' changes in behavior, his sudden interest in the company's finances, his secretive phone calls. She'd even recorded some conversations when he thought she was napping in her chair. But here's the thing that floored me. Dorothy owned something I'd completely forgotten about. Her uncle had left her a ranch in Wyoming when he died 10 years ago. 320 acres near Jackson. I vaguely remembered signing some papers, but Dorothy handled all that stuff. I figured it was just some old property we'd eventually sell. Turns out Dorothy had been quietly improving that ranch for the last 3 years. She'd hired contractors, renovated the main house, updated everything. She'd established a trust to maintain it, funded it by selling some stocks her parents had left her. The woman had planned my entire escape route without me knowing. "The ranch is ready for you, Gerald," the letter said. "Leonard knows about it. He's been helping me coordinate the work. I've also been documenting Marcus's activities. Check the brown envelope." The brown envelope contained copies of bank statements showing Marcus's unauthorized account, photos of him meeting with Midwest Commercial's owner, recorded conversations where he talked about pushing the old man out once he got power of attorney. Dorothy had built a complete case against our son. The letter ended with instructions. "Give Marcus enough rope to hang himself. Let him think he's winning, then spring the trap. The evidence is all here. I've already contacted Arthur Manning. He knows what to do." Arthur Manning was our family lawyer, also Dorothy's cousin. Apparently, they'd been coordinating this whole thing. I called Arthur the next morning. "Gerald, I've been expecting this call," he said. "Dorothy briefed me on everything. How much do you want Marcus to steal before we stop him?" "What do you mean?" "Legally, the more he steals, the more serious the charges. Right now, it's a misdemeanor, but if he hits $50,000, it becomes felony theft. And if he tries to take over the company through fraud, that's a whole different level." So we waited and we watched. Arthur had me install security cameras in my office, record all conversations. For 2 weeks, I played the part of the grieving widower who was losing his grip on business. Marcus ate it up. He got bolder, started bringing Beverly to help with administrative tasks. She began measuring my office, talking about updating the space for efficiency. They scheduled a meeting with my banker about transitioning company ownership due to health concerns. Meanwhile, Leonard was my eyes and ears on the job sites. Marcus had started treating him like hired help, not realizing Leonard was documenting everything. The kid was smart about it too. Kept copies of altered work orders, recorded conversations where Marcus told clients I was mentally declining. The breaking point came when Marcus filed paperwork to change the company's banking information without my signature. He'd forged my name on the forms, tried to redirect all our accounts to ones he controlled. That pushed the stolen amount over $47,000. Arthur called me that evening. "He just committed felony fraud, Gerald. Multiple counts. Are you ready to spring this trap?" "More than ready." We set up a family meeting for the following Monday. Told Marcus and Beverly we wanted to discuss succession planning. Leonard was there too, along with Arthur. ID moved all the important evidence to Arthur's office the week before. Marcus came in confident, had a folder full of papers. "Dad, Beverly and I have been talking with some financial advisors. Given your health situation, it makes sense to transfer company ownership now. Avoid estate taxes later." "Transfer to who?" I asked, playing dumb. "Well, to me, obviously. I've been running day-to-day operations anyway. It's really just making it official." Beverly nodded enthusiastically. "We've structured it so you keep a small stake. Plus there's the house to consider for your retirement income." "What about Leonard?" I asked. Marcus barely glanced at his cousin. "Leonard's great, but he's not family. Not really. This should stay in the bloodline." That's when Arthur cleared his throat. "Actually, before we discuss transfers, there are some irregularities we need to address." Marcuse's face changed. "Irregularities?" Arthur pulled out the folder. "Gerald hired a forensic accountant last week. Found some interesting transactions. $47,000 in company funds diverted to an unauthorized account. An account that happens to be in your name, Marcus." The room went dead quiet. Beverly looked confused. Marcus went pale. There must be some mistake," Marcus stammered. "No mistake," Arthur continued. "We also have documentation of you soliciting our clients while planning to leave for a competitor. That's theft of trade secrets. And these forged banking documents." Arthur spread out the papers, the ones with Marcus' fake signature. "You've committed felony theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. The DA's office is very interested." Beverly stood up so fast her chair fell over. "What the hell, Marcus? You said Dad had agreed to all this." I was going to pay it back," Marcus said weakly. "It was just temporary cash flow." "For 8 months?" I said, speaking for the first time since Arthur started talking. Marcus, I trusted you. Your mother trusted you, and you've been stealing from us since before she died. That hit him. He started crying then, not like a man, like a caught kid. I never meant for it to go this far, he sobbed. The house payment, Beverly's car, credit cards, we got in over our heads. I thought when you retired naturally, I'd inherit anyway. So you decided to steal what you thought was already yours? Arthur laid out the options. Marcus, you can return the money, resign from the company, and well keep this civil. Or we file criminal charges and let the court sort it out. Beverly grabbed her purse. I'm not going to prison because you're an idiot, she told Marcus, and walked out. Haven't seen her since that day. Marcus sat there for a long minute, probably weighing his options. Then he made the worst decision of his life. You can't prove intent, he said, his voice getting stronger. Any good lawyer can argue this was just poor bookkeeping, family miscommunication. Arthur smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Marcus, we have you on tape admitting to theft. We have forged documents with your handwriting. We have witness testimony from employees you tried to recruit for your new venture. And we have recordings of you telling clients your father was mentally incompetent. That's when Marcus realized he was trapped. Really trapped. Dad, please, he said, turning to me. I'm your son. We can work this out. I'll pay back every penny, I swear. You had 8 months to work it out, I said quietly. Instead, you stole more. Arthur pulled out his phone. I'm calling Detective Rodriguez now. He's been waiting for our call. Marcus jumped up. Wait, okay? I'll take the deal, civil settlement. I'll resign, pay it back, whatever you want. Too late, Arthur said, already dialing. You chose criminal when you decided to fight instead of cooperate. The trial took 4 months. Leonard testified about the unauthorized meetings, the forged papers, the lies Marcus told our clients. Our bookkeeper testified about the missing money. Even some of our longtime customers came forward to say Marcus had approached them, claiming I was losing my mind. The most damaging testimony came from Marcus himself. His lawyer tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, but when the prosecutor played those recordings Dorothy had made, the jury heard Marcus' own words. Him laughing about the old man's heart problems being perfect timing. Him telling Beverly they'd have the company one way or another before Christmas. The jury took 2 hours to convict on all counts. Marcus got 18 months in county jail, 5 years probation, and had to pay back $68,000 in restitution. They added interest, court costs, and penalties. His contractor's license was revoked. Beverly filed for divorce while he was locked up, took half of what little he had left. As for me, I started planning my exit from Chicago. I flew out to Wyoming first, wanted to see what Dorothy had built for us. The ranch was everything her letter promised and more. 320 acres in the Teton Valley, with the Grand Tetons rising up to the east like ancient guardians. The main house was a sprawling log home with huge windows facing the sunrise. Dorothy had thought of everything. There was a workshop for my tools, a study lined with bookshelves, even a guest cabin for when Leonard visited. Shed hired local contractors to do the work, paid them well to keep it quiet. The ranch foreman, an old cowboy named Pete Morgan, had been maintaining the place for 2 years. Mrs. Hoffman said you'd be coming eventually, he told me, said to have everything ready when you needed it most. That broke my heart all over again. Dorothy planning my escape when she should have been fighting her illness. I spent a week there, learning the land. There was a creek running through the property, cold and clear from snowmelt. Wild elk came down from the high country in the evenings. The silence was something I'd never experienced. No traffic, no machinery, just wind through the pines. When I got back to Chicago, I made my decision. I sold Hoffman Construction to Leonard and my foreman, Pete Kowalski, for $1.6 million. Fair market value, maybe a little low, but I wanted it to go to people who'd run it right. They kept the name, kept all the employees, kept the reputation I'd spent 28 years building. Leonard cried when I told him, "Uncle Gerald, I can take your life's work." "You're not taking it," I said. "You're continuing it. There's a difference." The transition took 3 months. I stayed on as a consultant, helped them learn the business side. Leonard was a natural at dealing with clients. Pete knew construction better than anyone. They made a good team. Meanwhile, I was packing up my life. Dorothy's china, the furniture that had belonged to my parents, our wedding photos, anything with real meaning. The house went on the market in May, sold in 6 weeks to a young family with kids. Made me happy to see children, playing in that backyard again. Marcus called me the week before I left Chicago, first time since the sentencing. Dad? His voice was different, smaller than I remembered. Hello, Marcus. I heard you're moving, selling the company. That's right. Long pause. I'm getting out next month. Good behavior. I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to apologize for everything. I know I can't undo what I did, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help, going to meetings, talking to a counselor. I sat there in my empty kitchen, boxes stacked around me, thinking about the son Id raised and lost. I'm glad you're getting help, Marcus. Is there any chance? Could I maybe come visit sometime, see where you're living? I'd like to try to make things right. I thought about it. Thought about Dorothy and what she'd want me to say. The woman who documented Marcus' crimes but still called him our son in her letter. Call me in 6 months, Marcus. Well, see how you're doing then. Thank you, Dad. That's more than I deserve. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I left the door cracked open because that's what Dorothy would have done. She always believed people could change if they really wanted to. I loaded my truck the last morning, everything I cared about packed in boxes and strapped down tight. Leonard helped me, stayed quiet mostly. At the end, standing in my empty driveway, he hugged me hard. Take care of yourself out there, Uncle Gerald. You too, son. Call me if you need anything. I will. And Uncle Gerald, Aunt Dorothy would be proud of what you did. Standing up to Marcus, giving me the business. She'd be proud. I drove west on E80, watching Chicago disappear in my rearview mirror. Took me 2 days to reach Wyoming, staying overnight in Nebraska. When I crested the hill and saw the Tetons rising up ahead of me, I knew I was home. The ranch in Wyoming was everything Dorothy's photographs had promised and more. Pete Morgan had kept the place running smooth as silk. The main house sat on a rise overlooking the valley, with the Tetons standing guard to the east. Every morning I'd wake up to those mountains catching the first light, turning pink and gold like something out of a postcard. Dorothy had thought of everything. The kitchen had granite counters and a gas range because she knew I liked to cook. The master bedroom had a reading corner with a leather chair positioned perfectly to catch the afternoon sun. The study had built-in bookshelves, already filled with books she'd been buying for me over the past 2 years. Books about ranching, wildlife, Wyoming history. Like, she'd been preparing me for this life before I even knew I'd need it. I spent my first few months learning the land. 320 acres is a lot of ground when you are used to city lots. There was a creek that ran through the property, cold and clear from mountain snowmelt. A grove of aspens that Pete said would turn gold in September. Meadows where elk came down from the high country in the evenings to graze. I bought a horse in July, a gentle old gelding named Copper from a neighbor. Hadn't ridden since I was a teenager, but it came back quick enough. Copper and I would ride the fence lines in the mornings, checking for repairs, learning every corner of my new home. The silence out there was something I'd never experienced. No traffic, no construction noise, just wind through the pines and the sound of Copper's hooves on the trail. Leonard drove up from Chicago every few weeks that first year. The kid was running Hoffman Construction like he'd been born to it. Business was good, clients were happy, and Pete Kowalski had become like a second father to him. They were talking about expanding, maybe taking on some of the bigger municipal contracts I'd always avoided. You sure you don't miss it? Leonard asked me one evening. We were sitting on the back porch, watching elk come down to the creek. The business? Sometimes, I said. But not the stress, not the politics. Definitely not the backstabbing. Marcus called the office last week, Leonard said carefully. Yeah? What did he want? Looking for work. Pete told him we weren't hiring. I took a sip of coffee, thinking about that. Probably for the best. Too much history there. You ever think about forgiving him? I think about it, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Or trusting again. Leonard nodded. The kid understood. That's why Dorothy had loved him so much. Marcus did call me that fall, like I'd told him to. His voice was still different from the old days, quieter. He'd been out of jail for 5 months, working at a hardware store, living in a studio apartment. Beverly had cleaned out their joint accounts and moved to Arizona with some guy she'd met online. I'm going to AA meetings, he told me. Not for drinking, they have meetings for gambling addiction too. Turns out I had more problems than just the stealing. That's good, Marcus. Getting help is good. I was wondering, is that offer still open to come visit? I looked out at the mountains, thinking about Dorothy and what she'd want. You can come for a weekend, but some rules first. Okay. You pay your own way out here. You stay in town, not at the ranch. And we take it slow. One visit doesn't fix 4 years of betrayal. I understand, Dad. Thank you. He came out in October, met me at a diner in Jackson, looking older than his 34 years. Prison had aged him, but there was something different in his eyes, less of that entitled anger I'd gotten used to. We talked for 3 hours. He apologized again, told me about the counseling, about learning to manage money, asked about the ranch, about Leonard, about Dorothy's grave back in Chicago. I told him about the elk, about learning to ride again, about the peace I'd found out here. I'm proud of you, he said at the end, for starting over, for not letting what I did destroy you. Your mother planned most of it, I said. She knew what it'd need. She always was smarter than both of us. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. Wasn't like old times. Too much had happened for that. But it was a start. That was 8 months ago. Marcus has called every few weeks since then, updating me on his job, his meetings, his small apartment. Leonard says he applied for work with a competitor in Chicago, got turned down because of his record. He's working construction again now, just as a laborer, but it's honest work. I found Dorothy's last letter to me this spring, tucked inside a cookbook shed left in the kitchen. Gerald, it said, if you're reading this, you made it. You are free. I know you're probably feeling guilty about Marcus, like maybe we failed as parents. Don't. We gave him every advantage, every opportunity to be a good man. His choices were his own. Leonard is your real son now, the one who chose loyalty when it mattered. Love him like he deserves. Live the life we always dreamed about, but never had time for. Watch the sunrise from that porch. Feed the elk that come down in the evenings. And know that every choice I made was so you could have this. I love you. Don't waste this gift being sad. I read that letter sitting on the back porch, mountains going purple in the sunset, and I cried. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. For 33 years, with a woman who knew me better than I knew myself, who planned my future even knowing she wouldn't be there to share it. Tomorrow, Leonard's driving up for the weekend. We're going to ride up to the north pasture, check on some fence posts that need repair, maybe talk more about his idea to expand into custom home building. It's a good life, a quiet life. Not what I expected when I was running Hoffman Construction, but better in ways I never imagined. The sun's setting now as I finish my coffee. Another day ending in paradise, thanks to Dorothy's planning and Marcus' greed. The ranch, the mountains, the peace. She gave me everything I never knew I wanted. And every evening when the elk come down from the high country, I talk to her. Tell her about my day, about Leonard's visits, about the life she built for me. Tell her thank you. Every single day, thank you for saving me from my own son and showing me what freedom really means. Sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones planning to rob you blind. But real love leaves clues to protect you even from the grave. Blood doesn't make family, loyalty does. And the family you choose will always be more valuable than the one that chooses your wallet over your well-being.